A 100 million flop, a movie that's likely to put its distributor out of business and the only director in history who somehow managed to release 2 box office bombs in a single month. These are the most ridiculous box office flops of 2026 so far, and we're not even close to Blockbuster season yet. Maggie Gyllenhaal's first movie as a director cost $5 million to make. It got 3 Oscar nominations. So when she wanted to make a second film, Netflix looked at her budget request of $65 million and said no thanks. And then Warner Brothers looked at that same number and said, sure, how about $100 million instead? Gyllenhaal's an acclaimed actress who's been working in Hollywood for years, but she'd never dealt with budgets like this. And she was not ready for the studio pressure and all the studio meddling that comes with $100 million. They shot the movie for $80 million, but then Warner saw the cut Gyllenhaal delivered in early 2025 and freaked out. Test screenings went poorly. The studio heads weren't happy, so they ordered extensive reshoots, another $20 million worth. Pam Abdy, one of Warner's co-heads, got brought in to try and get the film into shape for its planned September 2025 release. Word was she struggled with it. The movie got delayed to March 2026, partly to put some distance between it and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which picked up 9 Oscar nominations on Netflix. The Bride had serious talent involved. Christian Bale, Peter Sarsgaard, Jessie Buckley, Annette Bening, but nothing could save what became a disjointed mess after all that post-production interference. During test screenings, Warner asked Gyllenhaal to take out some of the violence and basically rework the film. They clearly didn't like what they got back. And then Gyllenhaal went on the promotional tour and spent a lot of time publicly talking about the troubled test screenings. Right when she needed to be convincing people to buy tickets, she was telling them about how poorly the movie tested. You gotta appreciate the honesty, but it's not exactly a great sales pitch. The Bride opened to $7.2 million domestically. They'd been expecting closer to $15 million. Internationally, it pulled in $6.3 million. Total global opening of $13.5 million. It ended Warner's streak of 9 straight #1 openings. The movie came in 3rd place behind a new Pixar film and Scream 7 on its second weekend. As of right now, The Bride has made $23 million total against that $100 million budget, plus another $65 million in marketing. It needed to make over $200 million to be considered a success. That's a tall order. Only 24 movies cleared that bar last year. That's not very many. Warner put out a statement defending the film, said the business is better served with studios taking bold swings on originals. Which is true, but there's gotta be a way to take chances without burning $100 million. Last year, Paul W.S. Anderson and Milla Jovovich made a fantasy film called In the Lost Lands. Cost $55 million to make, earned $6 million at the box office. It was one of the first big flops of 2025. This year, they came back with Protector. Much smaller budget this time, just $10 million. Still a flop. Anderson produced it and Jovovich stars in it. It's basically a cheap version of Taken. Jovovich plays a war hero whose daughter gets kidnapped and she fights traffickers, police, and the military to save her. The script even copies the race against the clock thing from Taken, just with a 72-hour deadline instead of 96. It premiered at a film festival in Korea in September 2025, then got a limited US release through a tiny distributor called Magenta Light Studios. Critics called it a low-rent Taken knockoff with deadpan dialogue, bad fight choreography, and a late twist that made no sense. It's got 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. They spent $10 million making it, and it couldn't even make that money back. Box office total is just $1.5 million. Jovovich has basically become the female equivalent of Eric Roberts at this point, just one bad movie after another. But she's a working actor and the bills get paid, so there's that. Glenn Powell was supposed to be the next big thing, the guy who'd carry the torch after Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Denzel. That's not looking so good right now. In November, Powell starred in Edgar Wright's The Running Man. Budget of $110 million, made $69 million worldwide, one of the biggest bombs of 2025. Then in February, he had How to Make a Killing. It's a black comedy thriller directed by John Patton Ford. Budget here was around $15 million. It made $14.5 million in wide release across 1,700 screens. The movie's essentially a remake of a 1949 British film called Kind Hearts and Coronets, and British critics were not happy about it. They called it a soulless, pointless remake. One of them described Powell as a Disney-fied Patrick Bateman, which is pretty brutal. The movie got mixed reviews across the board, 44% on Rotten Tomatoes. The marketing was weak, and despite A24's confidence that Powell could sell tickets on his name alone, that theory's never actually been proven. There's also the possibility that Hollywood overhyped him. He signed on to so many projects that he might be overexposed. That happens a lot when the industry tries to force someone into stardom. Powell doesn't seem bothered by any of this. He's already got more projects lined up. There's J.J. Abrams' The Great Beyond coming in November, a Ron Howard firefighting movie, stuff with Barry Jenkins and Judd Apatow. The question is whether studios keep writing him big checks after 2 straight flops. This one's a wild story. Dead Man's Wire was originally supposed to star Nicolas Cage and be directed by Werner Herzog. Shooting was scheduled for August 2024, but it got delayed to early 2025. By that point, Cage had committed to something with Amazon and couldn't do it. Werner Herzog had no interest in directing without Cage, so both of them exited. This completely destroyed producer Cassian Elwes. An investor who'd supported pre-production was demanding compensation, and Elwes was considering paying him back out of his own pocket and just shelving the whole project. One day, he's venting about this to a friend at a cafe, and Gus Van Sant literally walks in. Elwes took it as a sign from God and approached Van Sant right there. Van Sant signed on. They had to move fast. Bill Skarsgård had about a month between saying yes and showing up on set. 10 months passed between Skarsgård's casting and the film premiering at Venice. The movie's about Tony Kuritzis, a real guy from 1977 who got screwed over on his mortgage and took his broker hostage. He wired a shotgun to the back of the broker's head and held him for 63 hours while the whole thing played out on live TV. Then in December 2024, Luigi Mangione got arrested for killing that United Healthcare CEO, and suddenly there was this wave of social media sympathy for a vigilante killer, the exact type of character at the center of Dead Man's Wire. They had a perfect cultural moment handed to them, but it didn't help. The movie came out this January. It's got 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Van Sant's first feature in 6 years made outside the studio system, and critics loved it. But it made just $2.5 million. The budget was $15 million. Roquet Entertainment spent another $5 million to acquire North American rights and another $5 million on marketing. They lost everything. This is entirely a distribution story. Roquet is a brand new company, and Dead Man's Wire was their very first release. They had no idea how to get people into theaters even with great reviews and perfect cultural timing. Roquet's top executives are currently negotiating their exits. The company's pivoting to more commercially viable projects, assuming they survive at all. Meanwhile, Van Sant's been pretty chill about the whole thing. He knows studios only care about tentpole movies now, and he's not surprised when unconventional stories struggle to find an audience. A killer chimp beat Greenland 2 on opening weekend. That's not a setup for a joke. There was literally a thriller about a murderous chimpanzee called Primate that took $11 million while Greenland 2 made $8.5 million. The first Greenland made sense in 2020. Everyone was locked down, streaming whatever disaster movies they could find. Gerard Butler vs. Meteors cost $35 million to make, pulled in $52 million. That's a pandemic win. But somewhere in 2021, people in a conference room convinced themselves that streaming success meant theatrical demand. They greenlit a sequel for $90 million, 2.5 times the original budget, and somehow they thought audiences who watched the first one on their couch would rush to theaters for the second. STX went so all in they paid $75 million just for distribution rights before anyone had even written the script. Within a year, the company went bankrupt. Lionsgate rescued the project for $10 million, but by then the budget had ballooned to $90 million anyway. The movie needed $180 million worldwide to break even. It made $44 million total. The week before release, Canada pulled out entirely. Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, all the major markets that were supposed to deliver 10% of North American grosses just went straight to streaming instead. And the director spent that whole January doing interviews about making Greenland 3. His other movie bombed 3 weeks later. Mercy became the #1 movie in America, just not in theaters. When it hit Prime Video in late March, audiences loved it. 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, #1 in the US. People were genuinely into this Chris Pratt thriller about a cop trying to prove his innocence to an AI judge in 90 minutes. But Amazon still lost tens of millions of dollars on it. Timur Bekmambetov built a career on screen life movies, films told entirely through computer screens and webcams. The format prints money because it costs nothing. They made Searching for $880,000, earned $75 million. They made Unfriended for $1 million, earned $64. The whole model is cheap production and massive returns. Bekmambetov knows this better than anyone. He's been the screen life guy for a decade. Then Amazon handed him $60 million to make one, and apparently everyone forgot how the economics work. Even if Mercy was the biggest screen life hit in history, the format tops out around $80 million worldwide. Amazon commissioned a movie with a $150 million break-even point in a genre with an $80 million ceiling. The math was broken from day one. They scheduled it for August 2025, prime summer territory. And then just 5 months later, they shoved it to January 2026 instead, which is a massive red flag. January is where movies go to die. So Mercy opened to $10 million, dropped 58% its second weekend, finished at $54 million worldwide, lost tens of millions. Then it became a streaming hit on the same platform that funded it. So Amazon basically just paid $60 million to advertise to their own subscribers. Jason Statham had it figured out. 3 movies, 3 years, same formula. Statham plays Statham, budget stays under $40 million, box office stays healthy. Wrath of Man made $103 million. The Beekeeper made $162. A Working Man made $89. The formula worked because it stayed cheap and stayed specific. Beekeeper was absurd. Secret society of beekeepers protecting the country. Working Man had this particular job site revenge setup. They were weird enough to feel fresh even though Statham was doing his usual thing. Then somebody decided the problem was the budget was too low. Shelter cost $50 million, $10 million more than the movies that were working. And instead of getting weirder or more specific, it went the other direction. Former spy protecting a girl. That's the most generic Statham premise possible. He's done it a dozen times before. It opened to $5.5 million. Statham's worst wide release opening since 2008, 18 years ago. Finished with $49 million worldwide against a $50 million budget, and that's before we account for marketing. The same week Shelter was bombing, Rick Roman Wall was doing interviews about how fortunate he was to have 2 films in theaters simultaneously. 3 weeks earlier, his other movie, Greenland 2, had bombed even harder. 2 movies, same director. Combined budgets $140 million, combined worldwide gross $91 million. Add marketing and you're looking at combined losses around $150 million. All in 1 month, all from the same guy. Nobody in Hollywood history has ever had 2 genuine theatrical flops open in the same month of the same year. Wall set that record in January this year. Not sure any studio would give him another $50 million after this. Here's what Amazon learned after spending over $220 million. Adult crime thrillers don't work in theaters anymore. The audience lives on streaming now. Which is hilarious because Amazon is a streaming company. They already knew this. They paid $250 million to prove it to themselves anyway. In 2023, Amazon got into a bidding war with Netflix over the rights to a Don Winslow novella. They won by offering close to $90 million. Then they spent $93 million actually making Crime 101, then another $40 to $50 million marketing it. Total bill north of $220 million for a movie that made $72 million worldwide. They pushed it from late January to mid-February, right against Margot Robbie's Wuthering Heights and an animated movie about a goat from Sony. It opened to $14 million over 4 days. Chris Hemsworth's worst domestic opening in 8 years. Second weekend collapsed 61%, finished at $72 million total. The Goat movie, literally an animated film about a goat and not even a great one, made $182 million. And here's the thing that makes this one sting. It's actually good. 89% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics called it a gift in an era where well-crafted crime thrillers are rare. Audience score 85%. People who saw it liked it. They just didn't go see it in the first place. The audience for adult crime dramas moved to streaming years ago. They're watching stuff like this on Netflix and Prime now, not buying movie tickets. But we knew that already. Amazon apparently didn't.